ॐ शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। दयानंद रूपम मदाचार्यमीडे। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। This text Bhajagovindam generally accepted that the text was written by Shankar Bhagavad-pada, even though there are people who do not accept it, but still it is generally seen as a text by Shankar Bhagavad-pada. So the reason why there are many opinions about who wrote it is because this Shankaracharya is a common name, and there is no proof that it was Adi Shankaracharya who composed it. And there are many who say that it could be one of the Shankaracharyas of one of the mathas who would have written this Bhajagovindam. But actually it really doesn't matter. Why I'm raising this point, because somebody may ask whether it is really Adi Shankaracharya, but we just accept there is some Shraddha. With Shraddha we approach this text, with the Shraddha that it is from Adi Shankaracharya. And in South, I do not know how it is in North, how popular it is in North, but in South, Bhajagovindam became very popular after M.S. Subbulakshmi, Amma, sang it and the recording was released. So it was tuned as a song, Bhajagovindam. And once it was set to tune, and the tune also being very vibrant and very catchy, it was in Ragamalika. It became very popular and everybody started singing it. And you may see that in South India, in every house, they play Bhajagovindam in the morning along with Vishnu Sahasranamam and other stotras. Bhajagovindam will also play. And since M.S. Amma has sung many stotras and shlokas, everybody thought that it is Bhajagovindam is also a stotra. It is a stotra on Govinda. So even today in some books you will find that people have printed it as Bhajagovinda Stotram. Though it is not a stotram, it is a teaching. It is a teaching for those who are immersed or interested in prayers. And the language of Bhajagovindam also, if you see, the verses are very, very simple. Even if you know basic Sanskritam, anybody can understand what is written there. And maybe that could be one of the reasons why people say it is not by Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, because Adi Shankaracharya has composed Kanakadhara Stotram. It is not as simple. The Sanskritam is not very simple, the way he has written the huge compound words. And also Saundarya Lahari. So when you compare it with Saundarya Lahari and Kanakadhara Stotram, the language here is extremely simple. It's like somebody is having a normal conversation with the other person. The Sanskritam is very simple. And also when you compare it with the Bhashyams that Shankaracharya has written, this seems to be too simple. Maybe that is one of the reasons why people don't accept it as Adi Shankaracharya. But why not? People can even have a simple conversation, right? A simple way of communicating with others is also there. Anyway, this Bhajagovindam, it is not a stotra. It is a teaching for those who are immersed in, or those who are mind is totally occupied in prayers. Prayers means pravritti marga. Pravritti means seeking something other than me, anything that is outside. You go outside, going outward in order to seek something. And what do we seek outside is artha and kama. So of the four purusharthas, dharmartha, kama, artha, kama is the main two pursuits of humans, of all the human beings. And also artha, kama is common for animals too, to be secured and also to seek pleasure. These two pursuits are common for all the beings actually. So artha means all that makes one feel secured. All that one thinks will give security. If I think this will give me security, then it is artha for me. So what is secure? What makes me feel secure may be different from person to person. It will change. But generally, wealth, money, relationships, all these are considered as artha. Anything that makes you feel, helps you to survive, to live, without which you will be in fear. That which removes your fear. So when I have this, I don't have any fear about being hungry. When if I have money, then I am not afraid of being deprived of being able to buy something, especially food. Then this money also is very important for kama, for pleasure. So with money, I can buy many other things that will give me satisfaction for all my five sense organs. So kama is anything that gives pleasure, like food, music, sports, relationships. So anything that gives pleasure is kama. Sometimes relationship is artha and it is also kama, because when you have more people, more friends, then you feel secure. And also having more people and more friends around you is also fun. So it also gives pleasure. Similarly, sports for some people may be a security because it's a source of income. For some people, sports may just be a pleasure. And music for some people, it's a pleasure. For music, for some people, is a source of income. Then it becomes security. So like this, but generally, artha kama, there are no specific artha and specific kama. They all, sometimes they are interconnected. So there is nothing wrong in with wealth or relationships or money or food. But when a person is attached to these things, thinking achieving them is the real goal of life, and that alone will give me happiness, then what happens? The person is subject to sukha and dukkha. Sukham, because when you acquire something, you are happy. It gives you sukham. And dukkham is the process of acquiring something itself is dukkham. In order to be happy, there is a lot of effort to be taken. That effort need not necessarily be very pleasant. Sometimes it's really painful, but the pain seems to be worth it because the end result is going to give me sukham. So the process also is dukkham. And once I gain something, if I happen to lose it, then it gives dukkham, gives rise to dukkham. So this arthakama always gives rise to sukha and dukkha. It keeps coming and going. So why a person seeks artha and kama? What is the main reason for seeking arthakama? It is for the sake of happiness. Everybody wants to be happy. In order to be happy, a person seeks artha and kama. When you feel secured, you are happy. And when you are enjoying something, you are happy. So finally, the end result, what everybody is expecting is to be a happy person. So if I have this, I'll be happy. If I don't have these things, I'll be happy. So acquiring something and also avoiding which is not really good to me, or avoiding something which is painful to me. So it's both acquiring and also avoiding. gives happiness. And sometimes acquiring also gives pain, you know. Sometimes we think it is going to really be a wonderful experience to have something, so we go after it and we get it. But once you gain it, then it becomes a pain. Then what happens? The effort to gain converts to the effort to avoid it. So there is nothing as this is security and this will give happiness. This will give pleasure, iti. There doesn't seem to be a particular object. And that is why what happens? People have to keep on seeking something or the other, one after the other. Because once you gain something, even though it gives happiness, the sukham, the tripti that we have by acquiring something or gaining something, the degree of that happiness also reduces. You know, the day you gain it, the person is very happy. But after 2 days, 3 days, you know, like it's getting a new car. When you get a new car or a new bike, everybody is happy. Then everybody is very careful, you know, oh, it shouldn't become dirty. We shouldn't get any scratch on it. And then the person is very careful for 1 week. Then after 1 week, one scratch comes, then you're relaxed. So once the scratch happens, everybody is relaxed. Okay, anyway, one scratch has come. Hereafter, it's no more new. Then it's no more a new car. Then it becomes almost, it's already 1 week is over. Oh, you got a new car? No, no, I just got it last month only. 1 month is already passed. So the 1 month passed itself, it becomes a old car. So like this, anything we acquire, after some time, it becomes something outdated. Then the person wants something else in order to be happy. So that's why what happens is there is a continuous seeking. And the happiness that is derived through Arthakama also is not complete, it's not full, it's limited. It's limited by time and it's limited by the degree of happiness it gives. So this seeking of Arthakama is what is called as prayas. Prayas, anything that is time bound is prayas. Any result that I get through my effort, through my actions, is time bound. It's limited in the sense. To such a person, the person who is always seeking Arthakama, which is time bound, which is never going to make you feel complete, which is never going to make you feel fulfilled, to such a person who is immersed and lost in seeking that which binds him forever. So this Arthakama also binds a person, because once you gain something, you are attached to it, because there is a longing. See, having a desire for something and having a longing for something are two different things. You desire for something, you get it, and you are happy. But when you are longing for something, longing is without which I cannot be happy, is called longing. So happiness is, it's okay. You have a simple desire for something. If I have it, I am okay. If I don't have it also, I'm fine. So if I have it, I'll make use of it. If I don't have it, then I can go on with my life even without it. But longing is where the binding is. That is what binds a person. When you long, it means without that, until I get that, whatever I am longing for, till such time I'm not happy, I'm not peaceful, I'm not restful. So all my focus goes on acquiring what I'm longing for. So this longing is there with reference to many things. It need not be just one. Or with reference to everything, I'm peaceful, but only one thing is without it, I can't live. Even that is enough to bind a person. So Shankaracharya is addressing that person, to such person who is immersed and who is lost in seeking and is bound by whatever he has acquired, that attachment. To him, he very lovingly he chides and he says, "Come on, what are you doing, man? Wake up, it's enough. You have been running here and there. You have never had time to sit and relax. Now the time has come for you to open your eyes, to pause and think. But he says this, he doesn't say it so sweetly. He's using some really hard words, strong words to make the person alert, make him wake up, to draw the person's attention. So that is how each and every verse is. It's really very strong. Though the words, the Sanskritam, the choice of words may be simple, but the way he has presented it, the way he has composed it, the way he's communicating is really very, very strong in Bhaja Govindam. And so there is a background also why this Bhaja Govindam was composed. It is said that Shankaracharya was walking through a street in Kashi, and Kashi was the center of learning in those days. Everybody goes to Kashi for the learning of Shastra, for Sanskritam, anything. It's a center for learning. So in Kashi, you have narrow streets, and every house has a Tinnai. I don't know what you call Tinnai. There is a place where they come and sit outside. And he saw an elderly person learning grammar, Sanskrit grammar. And this person was trying to by heart the Dhatu Pata. In those days, everything was being by hearted, like they didn't have printing press, there were no books. And even if they had to write something, they used to write it on a leaf. And it's not very easy to write on a leaf also. And sometimes when you write on the leaf, the insects may eat away the leaf, or the Ajabaksham is there. The goat will come and eat it away, or it will be blown away by wind, or it will burn also. If there is any fire accident, it will get burnt. So the best thing people thought was, why take so much pain to write? Let me by heart. So everything was by hearted. So starting from the dictionary, everything was by hearted. So this person was by hearting Dhatu Pata. In Sanskritam, everything has a root, From the root alone, all the words are formed. He was by hearting it, and Shankaracharya, and this person was a very elderly person. It looked like this person has really lived his life, he must have taken care of his family very well, provided everything to the family, and all Arthakama is there. And this person is also a dharmic person. He's not a Kanjus or anything like that. This person who has great Shraddha in Shastra, and he has bhakti, he has devotion towards Ishvara, and he's an Astika. So to such a person, when he saw, he was overcome by compassion actually. And compassion, and also a little bit of, come on, what are you doing, man? So sometimes when friends keep on doing some mistake, you get angry. Angry means not, you're not overcome by anger, but you want to chide them, Enough, come on. You have done enough. Just stop it. We say like that, no? That's how Shankara is also addressing this elderly person. And this person was by hearting grammar. It's not that there's anything wrong in learning grammar, because if you see Shankara's Bhashyam, and he has composed so many stotras, without grammar he wouldn't have been able to do that. But what Shankara meant is, you have done enough. At least now, turn your attention towards moksha, towards Ishvara. So if this fellow is already a bhakta, because that is what I mentioned earlier, if he has Shraddha in Shastra and Homa and Yaga, which means he must have done prayers. But all his prayers were only to fulfill Arthakama. That is what Shankaracharya is also referring here. He says, see, whatever you have done, all your prayers were only for your own well-being, your family's well-being. You want to get artha, you want to get kama. For that sake, you have been doing all this. Even your dharma, artha, kama, this first three purusharthas, Even dharma was in order to earn punyam. So punyam is for the sake of having a comfortable life, a good family, good friends, everything. Punyam is necessary to have a very nice life. Not only in this janma, but also in other janmas also. So for even for the next janma, you can earn punyam and stock it, store it. So whatever punya you have done also, it is only for once again take a birth and once again do the same thing what you have been doing now. So at least now this Manushya Janma is very rare. You're not going to get this Manushya Janma again and again. Nara Janma is Durlabham. You are wasting this Manushya Janma. So please make good use of it. Enough you have done. Whatever you have done is enough. So this is what Bhajagovindam is about. And since each verse ends with Bhajagovindam, or the verse itself starts with Bhajagovindam, many people think it is a stotra on Govinda. So may you do bhajan on Govinda, or maybe it is a stuti on Govinda. This is what everybody thinks. And also the tune is set in such a way that it sounds like it is a bhajan, you know. So it sounds like a bhajan. So the original name of Bhajagovindam is Moha Mudgaraha. Moha means delusion. In Tamil we call it as mayakam. You know, you're deluded. You do not know what is right and what is wrong, what you're doing, what's happening. Iti, you're not aware. You do not know what is reality and what is not the reality. So that is called moha, delusion. And mudgara means a hammer. So with a hammer, he is removing the delusion of the person. So the hammer is the words. The words are like hammer. He's using the words as a hammer. Each word hits you, you know. He doesn't try to say it indirectly and sweetly and all that. Straight away he hits. Come on, wake up. What are you doing? So the words are like a hammer to drive in the truth, the reality into that person. We say when we have to use a nail and hit it hard, then the hammer also has to be hard, isn't it? Otherwise the nail will not go in. So if you have to nail it well, then you have to use very strong hammer. And so Mohamudgaraha is the text, which really is an attempt to make the person wake up from this dream. So you're living in a dream world, wake up. And there is something else you have to seek other than Arthakama, other than Dharmarthakama. There is something else very precious, very important for specifically only in human Janma and not in any other Janma. But anyway, since the text starts with Bhajagovindam, it became popular by the name Bhajagovindam. So what is this moha? From where did this moha come? This moha is actually ignorance. From ignorance came moha, or ignorance itself is moha. And from ignorance, there is ignorance of the self, about oneself. We have ignorance about many other things in Vyavahara, like somebody knows, somebody doesn't know Chinese, somebody doesn't know how to use the computer, somebody doesn't know chemistry, somebody doesn't know physics. So we have ignorance about various things in Vyavahara. But the ignorance here Bhagavan is talking about, Bhagavad Pada is talking about is ignorance of the self, about oneself, about Atma. Ignorance about Ishvara, ignorance about the nature of Ishvara, ignorance about the nature of oneself. So who are you? Iti, you have wrong identification of yourself. So you have forgotten your nature, you have forgotten to seek Ishvara. You sought everything else, but you have not sought that which you are supposed to seek in this Manushya Janma. So this is the delusion. The one who is excessively engaged in Laukika Vishaya. So to him, he is giving one kind slap, you know. sometimes when somebody is too much immersed in sometimes when somebody is in too much fear, they don't know what they are doing. They will be going on in fear, and they don't know what's happening. So at that time, you give one slap, and they come to their senses. So this Moha Mudra is like bringing a person to their senses. So why are you wasting this human life? And he's saying it out of compassion, he's not angry. He's overcome by compassion. Like when sometimes when our mother, when we see doing some stupid things, in the beginning she will say once, then she will say twice, and then she gives one slap. That's how he's doing it. It's because it's out of compassion, out of love. The Bhagavad Father has love towards these beings and to those people who are immersed in Arthakama. So don't be such a aviveki. Don't waste this human life. Viveka means the ability to be discriminative. And everybody has the ability to be discriminative. Otherwise, one cannot survive on this earth. But sometimes people do lose the ability, and that is why we have to put this statutory warning. Cigarette smoking is injurious to health, and alcohol kills, and don't drink and drive. All this we have to put because people have lost the discriminative capacity. So when it is lost, then we have to tell them. We have to give that buddhi to them. So that is delusion. When you don't even know what is right, you're not able to discriminate. Or even if you know, you still pursue. That is still worse, That is why Shankaracharya somebody has to say, some guru. Here as a guru is speaking to us. So nobody says don't eat fire, Nobody says. When you know something is really not conducive, not good for you, you don't do it. But sometimes when there is a confusion or when there is ignorance, then teaching is required. So this is the Viveka which everybody has in leading one's life. But there is another type of Viveka. Viveka, the discriminative capability, the ability to discriminate what is Nityam and what is Anityam. That is with reference to moksha. That Viveka Buddhi, if it is lost, then the human life is lost. With reference to self and non-self, with Atma and Anatma. So Bhajagovindam is meant to convert an aviveki into a viveki. A person who is highly extrovert, one who is indulged in pravritti marga. To that person, this teaching is given. Bahushaka hyanantasya buddhayo avyavasayinam. So aviveki is someone who has many pursuits. Like a tree has so many branches, So his pursuits are too many. Bahushakaha. For such person, it is very difficult to even think about moksha or think about Ishvara and all that. So this a person who doesn't have a discriminative capacity, he definitely needs to be taught. So, but how to make this person think, This person is running, is so busy seeking Arthakama. How to make this person think, even think that there is something called as moksha, and there is something called as Upanishads and all that. How do you tell them? How do you tell this person? How to make him stop? How to make him pause? Just forget about stop. At least can you just spare some few minutes? Even that, how to make him do that? Because from birth, whatever the person was doing, he or she is continuing to do it for want of something better, Uh, from the day we were born, we have been told, oh, you look so fair. Oh, you have beautiful ears. You have beautiful nose. Oh, your eyes are not so good. Your hair is not really that good. If there is so much of conditioning about how the looks. So people think The looks really matter. So in order to feel good, then I have to improve my looks. So the focus goes on how I look. So from there starts the lack, which means I lack something. Physically, I lack something. And then comes mentally also. Mental capabilities. Again, there is a lot of conditioning. Oh, you're not good at that. You are not good at this. You are incapable of doing this. You are not good enough. Such conditioning again. So there also in my mental capabilities, my intelligence, there also that lack is there. Even if I don't feel the lack, people make sure that you feel that lack. And there are many other areas where I myself see I lack something. So financially, some lack is always there. I'm always a wanting person. So generally when we look, every human being feels that he lacks something. And in order to fulfill that, in order to feel complete, the person seeks something so that he can feel complete. And that is the need, that is the reason for the pursuit. So when I seek something and I feel a fulfilled feeling for some time. So that fulfilled feeling that I feel complete. Wow, I completed my graduation. I got my MPhil degree. My God, I feel so. Now, if whatever happens, I'm willing to die. They will say, it's okay. Even if I die now, I'll die happily. So everybody wants that fulfillment. What people actually want is that fulfillment. Everybody looks for fulfillment. So the person always sees a lack in oneself, and as long as one feels he or she lacks something, the person can never be happy. It's impossible to be happy feeling a lack. So in order to fill the lack, he or she engages into various activities in search of the happiness of being fulfilled and complete. So the person is always on the move, always searching, always in the pursuit of acquiring one thing or the other, hoping this thing or that thing will uh, remove this lack and I can have a contented, happy life. It's really sometimes very tiring also, but then since people do not know there is some other special pursuit also, a very important pursuit, people think this alone is life. Even though at times people feel tired, no, people say, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm so tired of this. I think it's enough. But still we do not know what else to do. So people keep going on. Oh, this is how everybody lived. Come on, you have to continue whatever you're doing. That's what everybody says. So to this person, somebody has to say, no, 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 what you're thinking is right. Or if there is a person who doesn't even think about it, the person is not even tired of all this and he's on the move, then somebody has to make him stop and say, hey, like when you're having a conversation over the phone or if you're talking to somebody, you're having a conversation. Some people know they will keep going, you'll be talking continuously. Generally, there will be a pause where you'll have an opportunity to say, yes, what you say is right. Yeah, yeah, I agree. So at least there will be a pause in the sentence, a pause in the conversation from the other person where you have an opportunity, you have a chance to express whatever comes to your mind or share or add to whatever the person is saying. But there are some people who will keep going on and on and on and on. You don't know when the person will give a pause. You will be waiting for that person, like to get a chance to speak. But the person keeps talking, so you do not know what to do. But then after some time, what you do, you will say, okay, wait, let me say something. I have something to say. Then you stop the person. So that is exactly what Shankara is doing there. So he says, uh, Mudhamate. Mudhamate means, oh, deluded one. Okay, stop. You have been running from pillar to post, doing this and that. Stop. You are deluded. You don't know what you are doing. So this Bhajagovindam is to make the person stop. Forcing a person to stop. Okay, is forcing him to stop. Wait. And It's a forced stop. And that is why the words are very strong, because the person is pausing. We don't know for how long the person will pause. Some people will, when you say wait, they will pause, they will look at you, and if you have nothing to say, then they will start continue talking once again. So the minute he pauses, you have to finish everything, whatever you have to say. That is what Bhajagovindam is doing to this person. And the one who is constantly seeking and constantly searching for something which is not going to give them what they actually want, what they are actually looking for, but still continues to seek because the person doesn't know what else to do, because the person is deluded and it's out of ignorance. So he is making the person think. At least you pause for a moment and listen to me and then think. That is what is Bhajagovindam. And to think about what? Think about oneself. Think about what you are actually doing is valid or not, whether it is worthwhile or not. You have spent all your energy, you have spent all your life. So it's really worthwhile. It is really giving what you have been seeking for. Does it really contribute to what you really want? So what you actually want is happiness. Are you really happy? Is it giving you that happiness which you have been looking for from the time you were born? This Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu is Shankha Chakra Gada Padma. And they will say it in a very humorously. They will say, Bhagwan has Shanka. You know why Bhagwan has Shanka? So when a person doesn't listen in the sense, there are many Puranas and Itihasas and stories about sadhus and sant. So when you listen to the story, even in that story, you will have many teachings, about moksha, about bhakti and all that. Even though the person is listening to it, it is like um a warning, we get a warning sign. Oh, that day when I was talking, that day when I went to the office, somebody really mentioned about it, but at that time I ignored, I didn't listen to that person. So that whatever that person said, it could be a stranger, it could be a friend. When somebody said, it is almost like a warning, but we don't listen to that warning. We don't even take it as a warning. We don't even take it as something important. So that is called as blowing the conch. Somebody blows the conch, draw your attention. So first time the conch is really mild, hoping that, okay, if I say him softly, he will listen. If I say softly, the person will notice. But then when the person doesn't notice, continues to do whatever he or she is doing, then you have to blow the conch hard. Ooh, you have to blow it in such a way that the person really actually, you draw the person's attention and the person really listens to whatever is being told. So when you keep running like this, Bhagavan will blow the conch and say stop. And then he gives us a chance for a change of attitude or whatever. Then the person still, no, even in spite of blowing the conch, the person doesn't listen. Then he has this gada in his hand, the mace. Then something happens in life which really hits you hard. Then that person really wakes up sometimes. Okay. Then there is a change of attitude. Then he realizes few things in life. Then the person is a transformed person after that one hard hit. Sometimes people don't listen even after some hard hit also. Blowing the conch and gada also doesn't work. They keep going like some children, no? How much ever you tell them, how much ever you hit them, they will continue to do whatever they are doing. Then what happens? The Kala Chakra is there. Mahavishnu's Chakra is there. Then Kala Chakra, one life is gone. Okay. In spite of blowing the conch, in spite of giving some tapad, nothing happened. Time is over. Then again some cockroach birth or some goat birth or as a plant or a tree, and there are many other janmas, then you go through all the janmas and then you get a Manushya Janma. Then again you start from ABCD, the same thing whatever you have been doing in so many Manushya Janmas. Then again Bhagavan blows the conch and again he uses the gada and then Kalachakra. Let's say, suppose the person woke up, was the conch was blown. Then Bhagavan gives Padma. Padma is lotus, and Padma is knowledge. It stands for knowledge. Then Atmajnanam is there. For some people, after one hit with the mace, then the person wakes up. Then he gives, for that person also, the Padma is there. Knowledge is given. He gains knowledge. So like this is Mudgara. Moha Mudgara is a hammer to wake up the person and also to remove a person's delusion. Hammer is to break the moha, not the person. To break the moha and to give vairagya to the person. So if you have already studied Vedanta, it's not something new in Bhajagovindam. What you already know is what is being repeated in Bhajagovindam, but in a capsule form, for Vairagya. But it will bring about a certain attitude towards life, puts the person in the right frame of mind, and it helps you to question yourself. It will raise certain questions in your mind, makes you think, it makes you stop and to observe certain fallacies in one's pursuits in life. It shakes you, he stops and he shakes you. Bhagavad Pada will make you stop and also, come on, what are you doing? He will wake you up. So this text, Bhajagovindam, is for one who has Shraddha in Shastra. That is important, okay? Vairagya is the ability, once you make Viveka, like suppose I say cigarette smoking is injurious to health, okay? I am able to discriminate that one is not good and one is good for me. But in spite of knowing what is good, you have to stick to it, right? That is Vairagya. Not having any taste for that which really doesn't do anything good to you. So with reference to that, you should have you don't have thirst for it. That is called Vairagya. Not thirsty, not having a thirst for something which really doesn't help you, give you any shreyas, anything good. That is called Vairagya. We'll talk about Viveka and Vairagya as we continue with the classes. I will talk about that also. There are many verses there, and there is one more text also, Sadhana Panchakam, where Bhagavan, where it's another text where it's not by Shankara, but there also we have how to cultivate Viveka and Vairagya. So we'll see that also. For the time being, Viraga means not having any longing for something which really is not very beneficial to you. That is called Vairagya. So this Bhajagovindam is for the one who has Shraddha in Shastra. That is very important, we need to understand. And Shraddha in Shastra, and Shraddha in Ishvara, and Shraddha in Moksha. So this Shraddha, for a Shraddhavan, Bhajagovindam is said. And why? Because Vairagya with reference to Laukika Vishya. So that is where we need to have Vairagya. And Viveka and Vairagya is always spoken in the context of Moksha. So with reference to Moksha, a person, these qualifications are there. There are a few qualifications which is very important for a person who pursues Moksha as his goal. So this person, this elderly person who was in Kashi, he has studied Shastra, he has Shraddha in everything. He also has heard about Upanishads, because they have to by heart everything, all these Upanishads he would have by hearted. And there are many sadhus who would have been teaching. And he must have heard about all this also. Like we have this paperback books where we just accidentally browse to certain books and we come to know, oh, there is something called Brahman, there is something called Moksha, and there is something called as Atmajnanam. So we must have heard about it, but many people wouldn't have pursued it. So this person, the subject, the person whom Shankara is addressing is to someone who has Shraddha. And Shraddha in Shastra, Guru, in teaching, in everything. Because this person has spent all his life in puja also, in doing Ishvara Upasana, Ishvara Puja, for the sake of acquiring Arthakama even then. And Dharma also, because in order to earn Punyam, we have to uh, perform, in those days, Vaidika Karma was a means to earn Punyam, and Dhanam was there, Dharma was there, charity. All these are means to earn lot of Punyam, going to Tirtha Stalas, all this to gain lot of Punyam. So now instead of pursuing moksha, this person was obsessed with studying grammar, this elderly person. Again, the context, okay? So is there anything wrong in studying Sanskritam? Again, no. Many people say that Shankaracharya has said in Bhajagovindam there is no use in studying grammar. No, he didn't say there is no use in studying grammar. He said there is no use in studying grammar at that age, that particular age where he is supposed to have some other pursuit, not in that. But Pujya Swamiji gives a beautiful meaning for that. We'll see that as we move forward in seeing the text. And if this elderly person is studying grammar, then the next question, what is wrong in studying grammar when you are, is there any age limit for studying grammar? No, it is not because of the age also. Shankaracharya is not chiding him for the age also, because there is no age limit to learn. He's not even talking about learning grammar. He's only saying, why not spend time, at least now, in pursuing moksha? That is the reason why he says, okay, you have done all this command. Why don't you just now at least now, why don't you pursue moksha? So this person was reading Dhatu Pata and he was by hearting the Dhatu Dukran. Okay? Kru Dhatu, Dukran. In Dhatu Pata it is Dukran, meaning to do, karma. See, karoti, karishyati, karishyami, all this I do, I will do, I have to do, all this to do in the meaning of action, performing a particular action. The dhatu is krin. And Shankara is asking him to give up karma. What he is asking actually is give up karma, give up seeking all the karmas which have limited result. The result is very limited. It is time bound limited. It is not nityam. So do not engage yourself in seeking something will give you only limited result. So keeping this person in as a nimitta, like how Arjuna was a nimitta for us to learn Bhagavad Gita. So this person is a nimitta for us to study, to cultivate vairagya. So here in this context, generally they say this person was an elderly person. So one should not think that Bhajagovindam is only for elderly people. So I am not even 60, 70, so why should I have vairagya? I still have time to enjoy world. I still have so much to do. So all this Vedanta and Bhakti and all is only for old people. Generally, people think like that. Don't waste your time, man. Why are you living like an old man? All this can wait. Now you enjoy life. You do whatever you want to do. Then later on, when you retire, when you're sitting at home, at that time you can think of all this. This is only for old people. That sort of thinking is there in the society even today. Even when I joined Gurukulam, people thought, why are you going at a very young age to study all this? They thought either I must be having some depression or I don't know how to live. That is what people think when you start studying Vedanta. You're wasting your life, man. You are an idiot. That is what people think. Just because Shankaracharya was addressing an elderly person, it doesn't mean it is not meant for young people. In fact, if it starts young, then at least when the person later on at the later stage after 60 or 70. At least at that time, they will remember, oh, I was told all this when I was 20. Oh, I was told all this when I was 10-year-old. I have listened to that lecture when I was 25. At least now, let me pursue something different. So at least that thought will come, Otherwise, even that thought will not come. And also at a very young age, when we have a right frame of mind, right attitude, from starting from a young age, then we'll be making full use of the time we are alive, when we are in this body, and this janma itself becomes more fruitful. So there is no age limit for Upanishad, for studying the Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or Bhajagovindam. It's better to start when a person is young, always. So in those days, there was Katha Kalakshepa, Katha Kalakshepa, where they will say, Kalakshepa means time pass, where they used to come and do Katha on Ramayana or Mahabharata or any other Purana. And while telling the Katha, there will be a lot of Vedantic verses, because somebody will teaching Rama, Vasishta will be teaching Rama about Atma. And in Mahabharata also, you see when Dharmaputara is depressed, then Bhishma will teach him about, a lot of teaching is going on there in Mahabharata also. And of course, we have the most popular is Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is surrendering to Krishna and asks Krishna to teach. And that is when Bhagavan teaches all the essence of the Upanishad, all the essence of the Vedas. Everything is taught to Arjuna in that few hours, maybe within 1 hour or something in the battlefield. Everything was taught to Arjuna. So this, even for me to ask about what is Atma Jnanam, there has to be, I can only ask for something which I already know. Already know means what I have already heard. If I know completely about something, I'm not going to have any questions about it. But something is known and unknown. When it is, I'm having a confusion, when I'm not clear about something, then only question rises. So during this Katha Kalakshepam, even when children used to go and sit, even I have attended this Katha Kalakshepam. After 7, in those days, dinner was over by maximum 7 o'clock. And after 7, from 7:30 to 9:30, there will be Katha. So during this Katha, all these Vedantic verses will come and there will be a conversation. Even though as a child, you won't understand a single word of what they are talking, but you will know about, oh, Atma. Oh, there is something called as moksha. So all this apatata jnanam, you just hear about it, which it's useful for you when you grow up to question about. So like this, at a very young age, it has to go. Then only as we grow, we'll at least when we get the opportunity, when that shanka is blown, okay, I'll go back and listen to what is being told. Okay, there is something called moksha. Okay, there is something called shastra. Okay, Vedanta is there. Then, oh yeah, I should seek a guru. All this will come. Otherwise, it will not come if it is not there. So this apatat jnanam also is very important in Katha Kalakshepa and all the many other books. Nowadays, books are there, but even in books, I think these portions are not discussed much. They'll just give you only the storyline and not much about Brahman and Atma and other things. So this person is a nimitta for Bhagavad Pada teach. He says, know your priority. For a Manushya, what is the priority in life? Of course, you need Arthakama, but to what extent? How much you need them? And at least have the priority, what you actually need. If you want happiness, then you seek it at the right place. You're looking for it in wrong things. There you're not going to get what you are actually looking for. So it really doesn't matter at what age you start. Some people say, oh, I am already, you people started when they are, many people started when they are young. Now the time is too late. No, there is nothing late. There is no early or late. The minute you decide this is now, then it is done. It is simple. So there is no age limit or there's nothing as too late also. You have just to make a sankalpa, that's all. That from now on, My pursuit is going to be this. So make Ishvara your priority and everything else as secondary. So when we see the first shloka, I'll explain. It's 1256. Okay. So now coming to the text, Bhajagovindam. What is bhaja? Then the word bhaja is there. Bhaj is the dhatu for bhajana, bhaja. So bhaj means to sing, bhaj means to praise, bhaj means to seek, to love, to search. So these are, and to gain also. So these are the various meanings to the root bhaj. So we'll take the meaning to seek, to search. Okay. Mainly that is what Bhajagovindam here means. Seek what? Search for what? What should I look for? What should I search for? I have been searching for many things. So is there anything else new that I can search for? What is so special about it? This Bhajagovindam is about seeking. Seek. So seek what? Govinda. You have to seek Govindam. Love Govinda. Seek Govinda. Praise Govinda. Then who is this Govinda? What is his nature? That is what we need to know. That is what Bhajagovindam is. It says, know the nature of Ishvara. Know the nature of yourself. So, Vindati means searching, looking for, knowing. So when you seek for something, you seek something which is puja, which is worth seeking, which is worth having love for. So it should be worthy of your love. It should be worthy of your time. Should be worthy of all your effort. So you have been spending a lot of time looking for so many things. Now I am going to give you something. So you spend some time for this also. And you have been loving so many things. Now turn your love towards Govinda. Let your search be for Govinda. Let your praise be on Govinda. So why not gain that Govinda? And saying this, then the text starts. We'll continue with the text. Then we will try to understand what is the word Govinda also. I'll tell you in the next class. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.